Hey guys, what's up? It's Finch here. Today we're going to be discussing the SSOU viability rankings. We finally got the thread up. Initially we had a viability list up, which listed every single Pokemon that was worth using in the SSU metagame, but now we have the rankings up. What happens is we have a council of now 11 people who are fairly experienced in the metagame, and most of us were able to vote on it, and then we tied the averages of it, and with a little hard work and some magic, we put it together, and here are how the Pokemon are ranked. I also want to say that people asked a lot of questions about these Pokemon and why they were ranked after I opened up the thread to questions for 24 hours, and I responded to all these questions and more in like a 5-page long post earlier that I just finished writing. So, A, that's why I'm doing the video now and I didn't do it earlier. And B, a lot of your frequently asked questions, if you will, could be referred to that post. I referred to the post in the title of the thread too, so you could find it there. I'll try to leave a link in the movie description. But in the meantime, I'm just going to go over the rankings here and give some thoughts myself. Just kind of an informal video discussing the tier. You guys can listen in the background. Really, the only visual is going to be the Pokemon in front of us, so I'll be referring to them anyway as I'm speaking. So you really don't need to look at the screen. So I know a lot of you guys like doing these videos when, say, you're doing your homework or you're playing a game or whatever it might be. So feel free to multitask or do as you wish. I'm just letting you guys know that in advance because this is more of a podcast than it is a YouTube video. But yeah, so first off, in the S ranked tier, we have Clefable, Magearna, and Pheromosa. These are considered the three best Pokemon in the metagame props. Clefable, of course, is a defensive juggernaut with a ton of utility options. Not only is it capable of checking really prominent Pokemon like Pheromosa and Urshifu potentially, but on top of that, it also has a ton of things going for it. It is a masterful status absorber with Magic Guard, and on top of that, it has a slew of options both offensively and utility-wise. Of course, Stealth Rock and other utility moves like Knock Off, Heal Bell, Encore, etc. are all good, but also Calm Mind, and with a ton of coverage moves. Moonblast alone is a great stab move, but Flamethrower or Thunderbolt, for example, are good options there as well. And you can really adapt your Clefable to whatever your team needs, and all in all that, plus the fact that it's able to check the prominent fighting types like Pheromosa and Urshifu really plays into Clefable's hand quite nicely, and makes it one of the best Pokemon in the tier in my eyes. Of course, there are other really prominent Pokemon right now, such as Magearna and Pheromosa. As for Magearna, it obviously is like a complete truck with the choice specs equipped in boosting that already sky-high special attack and strong stab moves like Flare Cannon. It also has good coverage moves like Volt Switch and Focus Blast, not to mention potentially running Stored Power on the boosting sets as well. So all in all, it is very versatile and it hits very hard. And on top of that, it has a ton of defensive a ton of defensive pros. A lot of things going for it defensively, if you will. Sorry, I didn't phrase that very well, but Magearna is kind of a jack of all trades. Admittedly, it isn't really a master of any of them. For example, as a hard hitter, yes, Choice Specs Magearna is good, but there are a lot of things that can keep it in check, especially with, Metal, Heatran, Ferrothorn all being great. It's a bit more prediction reliant than it was in the previous metagame where Flare Cannon plus Volt Switch just kind of beat everything. Now that's very much not the case. So it's not necessarily Jack the master of that, but it is still very good at it, As a sweeper, there are definitely more potent sweepers. For example, Corpidance Pheromosa is by the most punching sweeper in the tier, and Swords Dance Garchomp hits a lot harder than something like, say, Magearna after a single Calm Mind or Stored Power. But at the same time, it's still very effective. It can snowball out of control, almost like Spectre, but it's probably a little behind Spectre in terms of, that set alone, sweeping alone, if you will. And then there's also defensively, it does a lot. And yeah, there are Pokemon that might have a more established needs defensively, like Heatran, for example. It's also a Fellow Steel type, but Magearna has great defensive pivot sets. And all in all, again, it fits onto a ton of teams. There's a super convenient defensive typing, and it also has a ton of offensive presence. And you don't really know what it's running until it's too late sometimes. And all in all, that's what makes Magearna as good as it is. It's definitely something that I could see getting suspect attention in the future. I don't think the immediate future, but more distant future, really depending on how the metagame shapes out. I don't think it's there quite yet. I think things like Pheromosa and perhaps Spectre are a bit more pressing as it currently stands, but I could definitely see things changing and that being the case in the future, so I'll have to stay tuned. But for now, Pheromosa is a clear-cut S-rank Pokemon in my eyes. Next up, we have Pheromosa. Pheromosa, of course, is an S-rank. It is an absolute beast. We had a video on if it was broken or not in metagame. Personally, my conclusion is yes, it is broken. It's ban-worthy. In my eyes, it's the worst defender being broken in the metagame as it stands. The Quiver set, in my eyes, kind of takes the cake. It's super hard to defeat. Focus Blast, Ice Beam, Shockwave, coverage. Really, only Clefable can stomach that, and Clefable oftentimes gets chipped down and crippled by teammates of Pheromosa, so it goes without saying that those type of cores are super good. The physical sets, such as Choice Band or even mix sets, heavy-duty boot sets are also really strong. And it goes without saying, even Protected Pads Pheromosa has been getting some traction now. It's funny how it evolves with the metagame and really takes advantage of the things that can potentially keep it in check or counter it, almost hand-picking them, which is largely a testament to the offensive presence of Pheromosa, the strong attacking stats on both sides, coupled with just how fast it is, so it can really take advantage of going first a lot of the time, and that goes without saying that it's super fast. It's like the second fastest thing in the metagame behind Regieleki, pretty much. And all in all, I would not want to mess with Pheromosa. It's undoubtedly one of the best Pokemon offensively, and yeah, it's a glass cannon. It's obviously super frail, not going to be taking any super effective or boosted hits, let alone neutral hits, honestly, but if you get it in safely, which is not the hardest thing to do in a metagame that's largely momentum oriented right now, then you're going to be paying the price if you're facing it, and you're going to be really reaping the rewards of it if you are using it. So, yeah, no, Pheromosa is great, undoubtedly, right now. Going down to A plus rank, we have Ferrothorn, Garchomp, Heatran, Melmetal, Slowbro, Spectra, and Toxapex, and Urshifu. Now, I'm going to give little descriptions for the Pokemon on A plus rank. I felt like I wanted to expand the most on S rank and a little less on A rank and a little less on B rank, and just kind of get marginally decreased the length of my explanations, where to the point when I get to the C ranks, I'll probably more just list a Pokemon and give honorable mention type of like, oh, like this Pokemon does X, this Pokemon does Y. But for the A rank Pokemon, they definitely deserve some light to be shed on them, as they're still noteworthy presences in the SSOU metagame. So as for Ferrothorn, it's the best spike setter in the tier without a doubt. It even is a pretty good stealth rock setter as well if you want to use it for that purpose. Obviously, you see it a ton on balanced teams, and it's basically a staple on rain teams as well, although we'll get to more on rain teams later. But Ferrothorn alone, a great spiker. It's really good against things like Melmetal, especially with the choice band set, seeing it decline in usage. Even that's prediction reliant, but also it's great at abusing bulky Pokemon. You see Slowbro, Toxapex, again Melmetal, Blissy. You could go down the list and say Mandibuzz, Finny. It's able to get spikes up on all of them. It's able to shut down Combine Finny, which is also super helpful given how common that is in the ladder right now. And all in all, Ferrothorn is clearly like, it's kind of more finesse than it is like outright like good in a sense, as in it's able to control the field a ton for spikes to be up or for specific switching patterns, i.e. you always got to go to your Maltress to get the spikes up, or Zapdos to get the spikes off when you face the Ferrothorn, but that makes you super predictable, your line of play. So all of a sudden, if you get that wrong and you go to predicting them staying with Ferrothorn and they double to their encounter, then they're in a bad position. Or let's say you think they'll make a double switch and you stay on this Ferrothorn, just lets the layer of spikes up for free. All of a sudden you're behind that way. And Ferrothorn just enables a ton of sequences, and it's super low risk in those regards, as a lot of Pokemon can't threaten it, and that goes a long way for it. Despite, obviously Pheromosa or Heatran are going to be able to beat up on it offensively with the super effective stab moves they have, but that alone isn't enough to hold back Ferrothorn, that's for sure right now. Garchomp is the next Pokemon. The Life Orb Sword Stance set and the Life Orb Mixed Attacking sets, in my eyes, are absolutely devastating right now. Be it through Scale Shot or the abundance of coverage moves such as Stone Edge and Poison Jab and even Fire Fang that Garchomp has alongside Earthquake, it is completely devastating to face a Sword Stance Garchomp if you're not well prepared with something like even Foul Play Mandibuzz can get one-shotted by +2 Stone Edge from Life Orb. So really, you're limited to like a Rocky Helmet Tangrowth, which dies to mixed attacking sets, by the way, or Buzzwole, which dies to mixed attacking sets, or some way of pivoting around it. Go to your go to your Magearna and then double to your Scarf Lando T on the Earthquake and type of stuff like that. Get the Intimidate, pivot out, pivot around it, that kind of outplaying, and just forcing that kind of burden on teams is super devastating. And Garchomp, if it gets turns right, can do so much work, and that coupled with amazing natural bulk already and a ton of different sets, Rocky Helmet again, like multiple different Sword Dance variants and a mixed attacking set. It just makes it so that Garchomp is super strong right now and absolutely deserves that ranking in A+. Next up we have Heatran, which it's Heatran. I mean, it doesn't really need much introduction. It's a great stealth rocker. The Magma Storm set is able to really avoid any passivity and trap defensive Pokemon like Toxapex and Blissy, especially when paired with Taunt and Earth Power, so that goes a long way. The more especially defensive sets are superb as well, and be able to check things like Magearna, which can go a long way. And even offensive sets with Eruption are super strong right now. Arguably not the main focus of it being an A+, but still strong nonetheless. And that is just Heatran, and just it checks a lot of things. Again, Ferrothorn, Magearna, Toxapex, grass types it can do pretty well against too, depending on which one. It's able to really force more proactive counterplay, which can go a long way as well, making progress in games itself, and it's just a great Pokemon. It's unique. Nothing has been like it ever before. Same goes for Melmetal. It's a very unique Pokemon, and unfortunately, I feel like the metagame's starting to slowly catch up to it. I even considered voting for it to be an A. We see an abundance of Slowbro, Rocky Helmet, Toxapex, Ferrothorn, and especially defensive Melmetal set leftovers protect with Adamant, Max Attack, and then a bunch of special defense EVs. It's still really, really good. It checks a ton of things and also hits like an absolute truck, but there are more things that it wallet. The metagame is definitely adapting to it super well, and I just don't find it super oppressive at the moment. It's a strong Pokemon, and it's going to be one of the strongest Pokemon for a long time to come. I'd have to imagine it's going to be an OU staple, but I don't see it as very broken currently. I feel like Kieran Black going definitely helped ease it off a little bit. I still think Choice Pebble Metal is an absolute beast, and playing around is challenging, but then it lacks leftovers, and it's super duper predictor line. A lot of things take advantage of Double Iron Bash, and that means that it could become a liability sooner rather than later in games if you don't play it exactly as you need to, and that alone definitely balances it in my eyes. So that's cool, and I'm really excited to have Bump Metal as a solid, balanced addition to the metagame. Slowbro is something that we definitely wanted to see more of in DLC 1 metagame. It never really popped up to the extent we thought it would with Future Sight plus Teleport, with Regenerator, Heavy Duty Boots type stuff. But now it is thriving more than one would even imagine it would have. It enables Pokemon like Urshifu, Cinderace, Garchomp, that we just discussed, Landorus T, etc. It's a super strong Pokemon in terms of what it can do, what it can force. Future Sight to Teleport. All of a sudden, you go to your Urshifu from that Teleport, and it's a slow pivot, so you get it in safely for sure. And now they can't bring in their Toxapex, so it's going to take a Future Sight after the close combat and be into a kill range or even one-shot range, and that's not good. Slowbro not only does that, but also it's good defensively. You can live a +2 it from Garchomp to pivot out with Teleport, or stomach something from Heatran, and so on and so forth. And a lot of resisted hits too. It's got a nice defensive typing, and it's also super bulky on the physical end, which goes such a long way towards its viability in my eyes. And all in all, I definitely would advise using Slowbro. The Future Sight, Teleport, Scald, Slack off defensive set with Heavy Duty Boots. Just it's lives forever, and it enables so many things in team building, which is why it deserves a place in the middle of A+ rank. And the Future Sight strategies have been super controversial. That people have been like, oh, we might have to ban Future Sight or Slowbro. And I'm like, I'm not there yet, but I see how it enables Pokemon like Urshifu and Cinderace being much better than they otherwise would be in certain contexts. I see how that's the case, but then you also have to be like, wait, is it so much Slowbro, or is it the abusers? And you're like, oh, maybe Urshifu is the problem, but honestly, the jury's still out on all of it, and I completely respect both sides. But right now, I don't think anything really in that dynamic is ban-worthy, so much as it's just a different mode of play that we're still reacting to. And you see people kind of slowly shifting to trying to keep that in check and using more proactive ways of deterring Slowbro usage, which does make sense, but they haven't really hit their full stride yet. One of those ways is, though, it's Spectre, which is completely devastating to Slowbro. It could one-shot it with Shadow Ball, or even potentially a Hex after a boost. So, yeah, and it could just sub up as, Slowbro goes for Future Sight, and Slowbro is forced out, and then the Future Sight it breaks to sub. Sure, that's about all you can do, but yeah, no, Spectre is a great Pokemon right now. It's arguably broken. In fact, I did a video on it earlier today, although, technically now, this is going up Wednesday. I did the video I did Monday night. It came out Tuesday. This is now Tuesday night, it's 11:53 p.m., and this video will come out Wednesday, so you get the timeline. But yeah, no, Spectre is amazing. I'm going to refer you guys actually to my video on that. I don't really want to elaborate too much more on it. If only because I haven't actually used it a ton lately, and I feel like that video did all of its sets a lot of justice. But yeah, no, Spectre, it forces really specific, limited counterplay, and it's arguably one of the most restricted Pokemon in metagame. It hits super hard, and despite lacking coverage and arguably some physical bulk, it's still able to make use of everything it has at its disposal, and Grimnay is a fantastic ability for it to snowball as well. So yeah, next up is Toxapex. Toxapex, obviously my spirit Pokemon, I love it. We're going to ban everything to make sure that it's a super good Pokemon, always an A+ or A rank, rank, because otherwise it just wouldn't be SSOU, of course. So you guys can just love the video. No, I'm kidding. So Toxapex actually was really good because of Toxic Spikes for a while, and now with the rise of Nidoking and a ton of teams just spamming Heavy Duty Boots, and even Defog Zapdos seeing more usage, took a little bit of a hit, but it's still really good. Now it's seeing more of a normal defensive pivot role. It's great at scouting out things like Urshifu and Cinderace, but it doesn't actually hard counter a ton of things right now. Like, think about it. I mean, okay, Shockwave, Pheromosa, Volt Switch, Magearna, obviously Garchomp can deal with it. Heatran's Magnus Storm plus Earth Power, Earthquake, Melmetal, Future Sight, Slowbro. Like, none of these Pokemon actually counters in the top 10 or 15 Pokemon in metagame. Cinderace is the closest to it, and Zen Headbutt can potentially to a KO, especially now that it's running more special defensive sets more often. But I mean, yeah, all in all, Toxapex is just really good at scouting things out and being kind of a proactive check. And in a sense, that enables some really cool things, but in a sense, it also makes games super drawn out. So you got to be careful, for what you wish for there. But all in all, Toxapex is clearly one of the better Pokemon in the tier, and A+ rank is no surprise for it. Same goes for Urshifu, devastating Pokemon that, in my opinion, should have been banned in the DLC 1 metagame. Wicked Blow is wicked, to say the least, punishing just about everything. Being able to intimidate from Lando T is super cool. I mean, it just destroys everything that doesn't resist it, and those that resist it, like Clefable. You have to watch out for Poison Jab, of course, especially if it's a non-choice banded variant, because then you can swap up moves. Buzzwell is really the premier hard counter to Urshifu, and with Buzzwole being on the decline due to a lot of things taking advantage of it, and Kieran Black and Zygarde being gone, it's definitely really hard to say how many teams are safe against Urshifu through and through, and not many, honestly. So it goes without saying that Urshifu is a really good Pokemon right now, and I'm really curious to see how it will go in the metagame, if we'll keep seeing with Future Sight or other strategies with it, and what kind of sets. But yeah, right now I really like Life Orb and Choice Band, so it's really cool to use, and it's really fun, and obviously quite strong if it's an A+ rank. So yeah, in A rank, we got Blissy, Cinderace, Dragopol, Extradrill, Kartana, Lando team, Mandibuzz, Finny, and Zapdos. Blissy, it's kind of more of a pivot. It's actually pretty proactive with Teleport plus Boots, letting you kind of take in Sponge, I'm only going to take 12 or 15% from the special move. I'm just going to teleport out, like just soft boiled up, and that actually enables a ton of more offensive Pokemon on balance, and you see Blissey being used more and more balanced than on stall teams, but of course Blissey still fits on those stall teams, being able to check an abundance of special attackers, and all in all, it's just a great special defensive pivot. Obviously, some of those stronger physical attackers, like the aforementioned Urshifu, can take advantage of it, and things like Quiver Dance, Pheromosa, despite being special attackers, can absolutely blow through it, but that aside, Blissey's still a great special wall and pivot in this generation, and I'm definitely excited to see where it goes. I honestly don't dislike Blissey too much. I think a lot of people really hate it that much, but me, I think it's actually fine. I think Teleport is pretty cool with it, all things considered, and I think that the positioning game around it can go a long way and actually kind of enable some competitive play. Forcing a knockoff on it and making sure to limit its switch-ins when playing more offensive teams to not let it just walk all over you with Teleport and bring in their more offensive Pokemon themselves without taking damage. I think that kind of stuff is actually, it requires a certain level of forethought and proactivity that I don't mind at all. So for something like Blissey is a lot less, dumb than something like, Regenerator Tox that's just coming in and like, oh, I'll take this and I'll come out and it's like nothing happened. So yeah, that's a bit different in my eyes. I think that's something that's worth discussing. Next up, we have Cinderace, which is a really strong pivot as an offensive Pokemon. Bulk up sets are good too. It is a little bit limited. It's got to pick between the pool of high jump kick / low kick, Zen Headbutt, and Gunk Shot. Got to pick kind of 2 to 3, if you will, because it's always running Powerball, and either you turn on pivot sets or bulk up on bulk up sets. But you know what I'm saying, because bulk up sets obviously have to run bulk up if they want to be bulk up sets. Wow, I don't know why I expanded on that of all the things to expand on. Okay then. But yeah, no, Cinderace is great, and I definitely advise trying it out. It hits super hard. It definitely more roadblocks. The metagame's a little faster, though there are more Pokemon that naturally outrun it, just not Dragopol. Not just Dragopol from Zero Aura. There's also, Pheromosa, Tornadus T, etc., which is cool. And then things like Rocky Garchomp and Swampert being prevalent, so it's important as well. Yeah, no, things that can check it, which, it's nice to have checks to actual Pokemon in the metagame. It's pretty cool, I'd say. Next up, we have Dragopol. Dragopol finds its way back into A rank. It's still really strong. A lot of people thought it would be A-, but no, we ranked it A. Spec set's really strong right now. It able to infiltrate through Spectralist and stuff, which is cool. Pivot sets are also great at kind of controlling tempo and managing the game. It goes such a long way towards ensuring that Dragopol can kind of enable other offensive partners. It's not necessarily going to sweep like Spectre. It's a very different Pokemon. It more abuses coverage and the ability to pivot in and out with its speed than it does use its speed to kind of outrun things and sweep. And it plays very differently. So if you want to have it fulfill the role of Spectre, then you're going to be disappointed. It doesn't do that. It's not a sweeper. But if you are okay with it fulfilling its own role as being more of a pivot and more of, say, something that could abuse its versatility, then Dragopul's your guy. It's great with status. It's great with pivoting. It can, you potentially use Choice Specs as a breaker, which, yeah, the one thing that overlaps with Spectre is that. But even then, it plays very differently. It has the second stab. It's a bit bulkier on the physical end, at least. So it's pretty cool to see that. It's actually a lot frailer in the special end, though. So yeah, I actually think that physical bulk is similar to Spectre. Special bulk is less, but Dragon typing allows for it to resist a lot of types like water and fire, which goes a long way towards ensuring that it is a very durable option, especially when packed with heavy-duty boots in the metagame. Next up, we have Extradrill. Extradrill is still a really solid option. Gives the ground type, so you're good against Stretchy Leaky. Gives the steel type, so you're really good against Fable. Hard wall Tapu Koko gives no close combat, making game pretty cruel. On sand teams, it's basically a staple. Rapid Spin also makes it so great, and we've been seeing a lot more Toxic and Rock Slide, helping against things like Tornadus T, Maltress, Zapdos, and so on and so forth. Even Toxic helps triple things like Buzzwole for teammates, which goes a long way. And I personally believe that Extradrill is, a promising Pokemon in the metagame. I think he got off to a slow start in DLC 2, but now it's picked back up. Same goes for Kartana. Honestly, didn't see it much at first, and now Swords Dance Kartana with Life Orb is just racking up kills left and right. I'm using it with Giga Impact for +2 getting a trade with, Moltres, Zapdos, etc., Mandibuzz. And I think it's a really cool concept. It's able to lure for specific teammates, but also regardless, just a straight up Swords Dance, Swords Dance, Leaf Blade, knockoff, either Sacred Sword or Smart Strike. It's just really, really strong with Life Orb. It's oftentimes able to get a kill just due to sheer strength, especially in the mid game, and it's also quite fast, so it's able to do revenge kill things or force things out that it can use a setup fodder just to get off more damage. And given how strong it is, it goes without saying that Kartana is a pretty great option right now. Moving straight along, though, Landorus T. Oh boy, Landorus T is back in business. It's actually, I believe, topped the usage charts, but it's really inflated. Just because people are like, oh no, Zygarde, what am I going to do? Oh, next ground type Lando T. Right, that's my family, Lando T. The face of Smogon OU. But nah, without Z moves, Lando T definitely took a bit of a hit. The offensive sets are still super strong. Unlike the bad, either bad player or bad troll in my comments, I would very much not recommend using Choice Band Landorus T. Some guy was really going off about that the other day. It was pretty funny, but pivot sets like Choice Scarf and Stealth Rock, bulky, are pretty good. More offensive oriented sets like Sword Dance sets are pretty solid as well, or even maybe just Scarf offensive. Obviously that works too. Yeah, but it doesn't fulfill a ton of defined roles besides Ground Immune and Electric Immune. Intimidate, it does let it soft check a lot of things. It kind of makes it a more practically oriented Pokemon as opposed to on paper hard counter things, which goes a long way towards shaping bulky offensive teams. And I think that's a super healthy dynamic in the metagame. But yeah, I don't see Landorus T as oppressive or problematic. I didn't last gen either, but Z moves definitely made it much closer to that offensively. But yeah, now it's nowhere in that vicinity. It's just a really good Pokemon in the metagame in my eyes. Next up, we have Mandibuzz, Tapu Fin, and Zapdos. Mandibuzz is there as a defogger. I think it's kind of spread a little too thin right now. People are trying to use it. I'm going to check rounds. I'm going to check Spectre. In reality, he could lose to Nasty Plot plus Wisp plus Hex Spectre, especially behind the sub. And also Sword Dance Grounds, there are more people running Stone Edge on their Garchomp. Or obviously Lando T at +2 is going to hit super hard against it as well, so you got to be careful. You just kind of got to not spread too thin, not make it do too many things at once. And if you can do that, then you'll be pretty well off against it. If not, if you're trying to get too much out of Mandibuzz, it might get overwhelmed, and then you'll be finding yourself disappointingly weak to things in the late game. Next up, we have Tapu Fin and Zapdos. Tapu Fin is really good. We've seen Combine sets, Taunt Combine, Drain Kick sets that are pretty cool. Also seen standard Defog sets, and also Scarf on Hyper Offense. It's just a pretty versatile Pokemon. You can title it does a ton, both defensively and in terms of utility with Misty Train, so that goes without saying that's pretty great. And then there's also Zapdos. Zapdos is a great Pokemon, both offensively. Offensive sets in my eyes are super underrated. Hurricane plus Discharge, Heat Wave potentially as well. Who needs hit power S when you got Hurricane so long as you hit anyway, right? And then defensive sets with the Fog, really nice. Heavy duty boots is kind of a godsend for it too. And all in all, Zapdos is a pretty friendly metagame for Zapdos, especially with Static being a super punishing ability right now. I'd say that Static's one of the better abilities for it to have. And fortunately, we don't see the days of pressure Zapdos anymore, but it's cool because Static's great. In A- rank, we have Latios, Maltress, Nidoking, Rillaboom, Slowking, Tapu Koko, Tornadus T, and Tyranitar. So as for Latios, it's just a nice breaker. It has a ton of coverage moves now. The thing is that its stabs are really easily resisted and are immunized through fairy types for Dragon and dark types for Psychic. Dark types for Psychic. Oh my gosh, I can't talk, but yeah. All in all, it's definitely limited, but without Pursuit, it's able to get in more. It's a lot less restricted in that regard, and therefore it can abuse its offensive presence. It also is pretty good defensively against a couple things. Equivalent to Nidoking's Earth Power, for example. That's one thing. It doesn't counter Nidoking, but it abuses Slowbro, which is cool. It could actually tank any hit Heatranus to throw it, and has super effective coverage moves. So yeah, if you make use of Latios, it can definitely be a super strong asset offensively. Moltres, on the contrary, is more of a defensively oriented Pokemon, doing well against things like Non-Quiverden, Shockwave, Pheromosa. It checks grass types like Rillaboom and even lives a +2 Life Orb knockoff from Kartana with just a few defensive Vs there. Great against a Buzzwole as well, Nonrock Slide, Extradrill, you name it. It's also one of the premier Heatran checks, being able to fire off faster Scorching Sands potentially, and obviously living Magnus Germs. Earth Power in the Roost, you gotta be scary, especially if you're toxic, but that aside is pretty good. And Defog, it has Flame Body for Double Iron Bash from Metal and U-turn punishing as well, so that goes a long way towards solidifying Moltres. It's a very viable option. I quite like it as a defogger right now. So yeah, there's also Nidoking. Nidoking is just a solid Pokemon right now. Probably underrated a bit. It's great against Regieleki and Tapu Koko, as we say, but also it abuses Clefable and Toxapex too. Defensive grasses like Tangrowth, for example, which goes a long way. It's 4 attacks. Everything besides Blissy in the metagame is 2 killed by it. You could name any Pokemon, and it could be. You could run especially defensive Slowking to potentially check it, but technically speaking, Slowking's not OU by usage. So everything OU by usage is 2 killed by it, besides Blissy, basically. And yeah, Speed Tear is amazing, but really loves being paired with a slow U-turn or a teleport to get it in safely. Soaks up Toxic Spikes, checks those fairy types I mentioned before, and electric types I mentioned before, and it's just like a complete truck, so it's pretty cool to finally see, thrive in the metagame as it is. Rillaboom, it's still really great, be it with Choice Band or Sword Dance. Choice Band in particular is super good. Strong Priority can go such a long way right now, especially in a more offensively paced metagame. In addition to that, Grassy Terrain is a super abusable ability and can definitely benefit some teammates and make it so that you have more smooth counterplay and pivoting around when maneuvering your team. Slowking, on the contrary, is just kind of a more specially defensively oriented Slowbro if you want to be safer against things like Heatran, Tornadus T, you potentially tank Killblades from Latios that could go a long way for you, yeah. It'll definitely make you a bit weaker to Swords Dance ground, but it's a price you have to pay. It's really trade-off. And Slowking definitely is trending upwards right now. Same with Galarian Slowking, by the way. It's getting much, much better, which is super cool. But so that'll be interesting to see how that goes. Then there's also Tapu Koko, Tornadus T, Tyranitar. Koko is just, a fast pivot on the special offensive side. Thunderbolt, Dazzling Gleam, Roost U-Turn. It's not spectacular. It's arguably one of the worst A- Pokemon right now. I could see it closer to B+ than A, but it's still a pretty good pivot. Electric Drain can help some teammates as well, so yeah, and you could even run more gimmicky sets. It has some coverage moves. It does miss Hidden Power Ice for sure, but it's not awful. It's definitely a very viable Pokemon. Tornadus T, it hasn't really hit its full potential with the Nasty Plant set quite yet, but on rain teams it's still really cool with Weather Ball in my eyes, and on top of that, pivot sets are super nice. I definitely think they'll get better and better as time goes on. Heavy Duty Boots is a godsend for Tornadus T, and while it hasn't quite reached its full potential, I can definitely see it getting there. I think it's a great pivot. I think it has a ton of offensive potential, defensive potential, and utility potential. It's just a really well-rounded Pokemon now, and super fast, so that helps it as well. Tyranitar, on the other hand, is more or less diminished to just running special defensive set, but that set alone is, it's great against Spectra and Heatran, for example. To check them, check Dragopol a little bit, and you can run Rest for things like Spectra's Will-O-Wisp, Heatran's Toxic, or another coverage move. Still throw out special defensive. It's also, the Sand Sitter on Sand Team, so works super nice with Extradrill, for example, too, which goes a long way. Tyranitar is limited, but it still does what it does really well, and that's what matters. It gets the job done, and it makes it so the Spectra ain't doing crap, so I definitely would advise trying it out in a Sand Team, for sure. B+ rank, Blaziken, Buzzwole, Corviknight, Dracozolt, Hydreigon, Kyurem, Magnus on Tapu Lele. Blaziken, just a little underwhelming. It kind of suffers from 4 moveset syndrome. You wish you'd run Earthquake or Knockoff or Thunder Punch or Protect. And, Protective Pads is cool, but without Life Orb, you lose some breaking power. It feels like it wants just a little more out of it, but it doesn't quite get it, and that's what's really balancing it and keeping it kind of underwhelming in this metagame as it stands, but it definitely has the potential to break out. It's a Blaziken, still a really strong attacker, and with Sword Dance plus Speed Boost, offensive teams have to constantly be on watch for this thing, because it'll absolutely pulverize them. That chicken don't screw around, so yeah, needless to say, Blaziken's great. Just not quite great enough to be in the A ranks right now. Buzzwole, Pokemon that saw super high highs. It could have been an A or A+ rank a couple weeks back when we had Kyurem Black and Zygarde this year, but now with those gone, it's still able to check things like Extradrill, Tyranitar, Kartana, Rillaboom, Landorus T, and non-mixed Garchomp, even non-choice band Metal it can check, but at the same time, it's still pretty limited. As it's free Clefable, free Zapdos, free Maltress, free Toxapex, etc. I can toxic a couple of those, but so it's not great. You got to kind of find it in the right team, and also the abundance of Future Sight being used holds it back a ton. As Future Sight paired with things like Urshifu, which it checks, or Kartana, Rillaboom, etc. All of a sudden you're like, oh crap, I can't switch my Buzzwole to check this Pokemon that it normally would counter because Future Sight will pulverize it, and that's bad. So yeah, the metagame's not trending in Buzzwole's favor after those bans. And unfortunately, I could definitely see it falling even further down like it has in prior generations, unfortunately. Corviknight is still a good defogger, but it's just not quite where it once was. Pressure is still a great ability, and it does pretty well against the ground. So you can at least pivot around them and get in a faster Revenge Killer while deterring Rock's usage with Defog. And Bulk Up sets are also great with Pressure right now. Sub Bulk Up, the standard is solid for sure, but it's still limited, and there are a lot of Pokemon that take advantage of it. With Cinderace being in the tier, Moltres, Zapdos, they don't really mind it. Heatran, you kind of sit there. So yeah, it goes without saying that Corviknight is good, but I don't think it's necessarily great right now. I don't think it's in the A ranks, unfortunately. Dracozolt, it's a great Sand Rush user. It has the Bolt, Beak, Draco, Meteor, Fire Blast, and usually Earthquake Blast kind of set. It takes advantage of Sand. It's a complete killing machine if you don't face like a Gastrodon or a Hippowdon or something like that. I guess Swampert can kind of deter it, but Draco Meteor also does a ton to it. But yeah, if you get free rain, if you click the right move, it is very prediction line. Then you're going to be getting kills. You're going to be doing a lot of damage if you don't face a less than ideal matchup. And overall, it's really cool for Sand teams to kind of have a presence like that fit into the middle of them. It's not something you see every day. So yeah, next up we've got 2 dragons, Hydreigon and Kyurem. Hydreigon, it unfortunately fills more of a defensive role right now than a Nasty Plot set, especially defensive with Defog. Pretty cool. Earth Power, Dark Pulse, Roost, Defog, check Spectra and Heatran, for example. And yeah, Kyurem, back to its old ways with running choice specs. Coverage move like Earth Power, it makes it more prediction reliant, but high ceilings, able to get things like Melmetal, Heatran for a one shot, and Magearna. hitting them, and then Ice Beam plus Freeze Ray still pretty much is everything else. It's a bit more resistance to this mindless Ice Beam Freeze Ray spam of the DLC 1 metagame, but if you get your predictions right once or twice in your early game, then it's going to go a long way towards solidifying Kyurem as a great Pokemon. Magnus, it's still there as a trapper, but also Choice Specs hits super hard, good against things like Corviknight, and also can just shred your core if you don't have a right ground type for it. Like Extradrill, for example, could do pretty well against it. But yeah, no, you just gotta use your Magnus kind of with some foresight, some consideration for that stuff, and you should be well off. For sure, Tapu Lele, Choice Specs just to complete nuke. Again, kind of like Latios, you got to be careful of the stab being, immunized or resisted in the case of Moonblast, and immunized by Dark types in the case of Psychic. So, yeah, but if it's not resisted, it's going to hit super hard, and it's not super slow either. It is a little on the fragile side, the physical end, but Tapu Lele is really great right now if you able to make use of the right team, but it's still kind of limited, so you got to find that right team if you will. In B rank, we're just going to kind of work to start speeding up on these Pokemon. Aegislash, Troodon, Dragonite, Hippowdon, Como-O, Regieleki, Skarmory, Suicune, Swampert, Tangrowth, Urshifu, Rapid, Victini, Volcarona, and Zarude. Aegislash definitely fell from grace. It's just struggling in a metagame where other ghost types like Spectra are more dominant, and Aegislash is kind of countered by the same thing, and then some like Tox Specs with Special Defense and Heatran, so gotta watch out. Groudon, it's just the metagame is getting faster and it's still very slow. So yeah, Dragonite. Dragonite's heavy duty boot sets are good, but a lot of things can naturally check them, and also Dual Wing Beat has its drawbacks being, a two-hitting contact move and all that. Gastrodon, Rocky Helmet set's pretty cool, deterring some specific things. You can clear Smog to make sure that you check Combine Tapu Fin as well. Rocky Helmet also means Dragon Kiss, it takes damage, it's a contact move, so yeah. I guess Kissing Gastrodon does that. Wow, I didn't think I'd ever said that, but here we go. Rocky Helmet's good for Double Iron Bash, Punishment too, and it's just a really practical Pokemon. Obviously, it counters Regieleki as well, which is cool, and Coco. So yeah, Hippowdon, much of the same. It's a Stealth Rock ground type now, so it's going to be checking those same Pokemon we just mentioned, like Regieleki, but also it gets rocks up, and it can be physically defensive or more specially defensive. You want to cover things like Heatran. So yeah, it's solid, not amazing though. Como-O, seen better days. It's kind of overshadowed by like the Urshifus and the Pheromosas of the world, but it's still can run bulky sets with Stealth Rock and even potentially a bulkier Swords Dance set. You've seen that too with Life Orb, and it still has its options. Regieleki is not ranked due to the choice specs, so the offensive sets, ground types are on every good team right now, or electric minions at least, but screen sets on hyper offense, letting those teams off and getting off with a boom after screens, they're pretty solid right now, and it's fast enough to do that without much punishment, so it makes Regieleki very viable alone. Skarmory's there, it's good for ground types and grass types defensively, and also spikes or fog, Toxic Whirlwind, counter, body press, etc. It's definitely got a lot of tools at its disposal. Kuhn is just an annoying Combinder with the Vincoon set, which is sub Combine. It's called Protect. Its pressure is super abused by it. It's kind of dead weight against Toxic, so you gotta be careful. That's what limits it a ton, otherwise it'd be ranked pretty high. But yeah, no, once the metagame gets more kind to it, maybe we'll see. Hurt is a really good rocker, and a lot of people wanted it ranked higher. My idea mainly is that it's kind of trending in the wrong direction. It was initially a top 12 Pokemon, and now it's outside the top 15, whereas both Garchomp and Lindor's T-Rose and usage a ton. And that's no surprise either. Swampert's kind of fringe. It doesn't have the survivability or the breaking power to really stand out either way. It's sort of just a tank. It tanks a hit or two and then gets out. But if you don't have the longevity, then you really need the breaking power in a metagame that kind of favors the extremes, kind of favors the definitive roll compression being done. And Pert is a soft check to a number of things, but like Garchomp can check things like Heatran too, while also being like a breaker. Landorus T can also be a pivot too while setting up Stealth Rock, but also intimidate, and it's a ground immunity and a ton of attack. So, it kind of slowly finds itself being phased out a little bit. But I think Swampert will still loom in the metagame as a viable option for times to come. Tangrowth, just a standard Rocky Helmet set. It's solid, but not amazing. Wouldn't use Assault Vest right now. I would even consider using Focus Blast on it to hit things like Artana in one hit. So yeah, be careful, but proceed as you would, because Tangrowth's still a nice defense option. Shoot for Rapid, it's mostly seen on rain teams, but also on a choice band set with Future Sight pretty well, and even the weird Whirlpool set is technically viable too, so, be smart about it, and good things will happen with your Shoot for Rapid. Victini, Future Sight, Blue Flare, Scorching Sands U-Turn is actually a really underrated set, be it on Sun teams or on more bulky offensive teams with things like Urshifu or Pheromosa. To really punish the wrong things for coming in on them with that Future Sight U-Turn. And also with Boots plus being fire Psychic type resisting things like Fairy, Fighting, Grass, it could come in handy as well. Definitely a bit more limited than one would imagine. It can't really fire off Choice Band V-Creates, for example, but yeah, no, it says it does use it solid. Nothing over the top. Volcarona is definitely gets stuffed by things like Blissy, Tyranitar, and Heatran being all over the place. Not to mention, Dragonite in the same rank, you can counter it too, but it still offers a ton Offensively, if you don't face those things, it's a bit matchup oriented, of course, like any Volcarona would be, but it has a super high ceiling, and therefore, it still deserves to be ranked. And I think it got banned from UU, which is cool too, although being banned from UU has nothing to do with your placement in OU tier now. It's just the believe now. So yeah, Zarude, good sweeper, still a premier Spectre set, and honestly, jungle healing is super practical. A lot of teams struggle to deal with it, especially with the drop in Buzzwell usage. So it's interesting to see how that sustains itself or does not sustain itself over time. B- rank, we got Scuda and Kingdron, Pelipper, aka Rain City. It's hard to rank archetypes like Rain higher because we rank individual Pokemon, and Beats 3 Pokemon, Pelipper, Kingdron, and Scuda, are limited to only being used on Rain teams. And a lot of Pokemon above, like for example, you see Zarude on balance in both the offense. You see Urshifu on Rain, and then specific balances with Suicune. You see Aegislash on both the offense and balance at least. You can see it on offense too. Crawdon you see on Trick Room and Hyper Off, and you can even see it with Teleport on balance and so on and so forth. Gastrodon can be used on Stall and balance. You see Pokemon that are more widespread, more diverse, and yeah, their peak might not be as high as peak Rain team usage, but at the same time, they're still solid Pokemon that you're going to be seeing in a bit more versatility. Whereas the role of Barraskewda is always going to be Choice Band, Flip Turn on Rain, or Kindred's always going to be especially offensive on Rain. Pelipper is always going to be the Rain inducer. So it's just unfortunate that they're limited in that fashion. And Rain teams, are more or less the flavor of the month type of hyper offense, and use more sustainable usage. I'm definitely happy to move to B. Personally, I was kind of on the fence between D and B minus, but it's hard because even when Sun peaked during the World Cup Pokemon during summer of DLC 1, and you saw it every other game, I feel like it really wasn't much above B or B plus in the viability rankings. And when you saw the Little Pig hyper offense with the Slowbro Galar and a Belly Drum that surged through the ladder, it was used a ton in OLT and then OLT playoffs, which is hilarious. None of the Pokemon in it really rose above C plus rank and so on and so forth. We didn't see Slowbro G shoot up the viability rank. So when you see these Pokemon that are really limited to a specific archetype, it's hard to rank them higher because we don't rank the archetype. Rain is a B archetype. No, we're talking about the individual Pokemon on Rain, and it's hard because these Pokemon, objectively speaking, have less of a place in the metagame than Pokemon that see themselves more used more and spread more out. So yeah, it's hard, but it's kind of towing the fine line, and this is where we are right now. I can see it being B before C+, but I don't think I can see it much higher than that, so it'll be interesting to see how it fares out. Ditto, the Master Flow Revenge Killer anti-setup option, which is cool. Hatterene for Magic Bounce and potentially Trick Room plus Misty Explosion is pretty cool. Lucha, the Terrain Abuser, I guess could work as well, with Rillaboom or Lele or Coco and Frinny, whatever you want. Incineroar is just okay. It's there for Spectre, and that's about it. That's pretty well with Wish, Duncan Force, Nox, and Status at least to make up for its lack of presence. Otherwise, yeah, Nidoqueen in sub-budget, Nidoking offensively, but you can modest and it's nice bulk, so even better against fairy types. And it can set up Stealth Rock and Toxic Spike too. And all in all, it's definitely more of a finesse-oriented Nidoking, less of a breaker. But if that kind of hybrid sort of form for your Sheer Force Ground Poison type fits your team better, then it definitely can work. It's definitely worth considering. Scizor has seen better days, a lot of fast bullet punch resists, and a lot of things that can take advantage of it. Toxapex is all over the place, Zapdos, Maltress, etc. But it still is viable. Bullet punch is super good against hyper offensive teams, and you gotta be respectful of that. Speaking of things that are viable, Slowking, Galar, and Maya should be B plus right now. The Future Sight plus Scald or Hydro Pump plus Sludge Bomb plus Flamethrower set. Super hard to deal with. It's all fast and Regenerator. Obviously, you gotta be careful, but it checked things like Special Pheromosa and Specs Magearna with ease. And beyond that, it's also super hard for offense to switch into that combination of coverage moves. And you could even run Special Attack Investment or plus Special Attack, which is super strong. And my Slowking Galar is actually kind of an underrated Pokemon right now. So yeah, I think that's really cool. Next up, we have Zapdos Galar. It's really defined abuser on offense. It has no defensive presence, unfortunately. No Roost either, so it's kind of limited to using on specific offensive teams, but that's fine. It's still an okay Pokemon. In the C plus rank, we have Amoonguss, Azumarill, Celesteela, Gengar, Jirachi, Latias, Mew, Moltres Galar, Ninetales Alola, Obstagoon, Reuniclus, Rotom Heat, Shuckle, Tapu Bulu, Tracheon, Toki, Zeraora. Nothing really of note here. Had a Mighty Fall with Amoonguss. And Rotom Heat and Zeraora. It's unfortunate to see them decline, but the metagame definitely isn't as much in their favor as it once was, with a lot of common checks to them just running around, and unfortunately that's where they are now. As for C rank, we have Alakazam and other mighty Pokemon falling, I guess. Bisharp, Blacephalon, Conkeldurr, same for him. Cresselia, Diggersby, Glastrier, which you can see on Trick Room, Grimmsnarl, Keldeo, Crocodile, Mamoswine, Marowak, Alola, Mimikyu, Krozma, Lego, Quagsire, Rhyperior, which again, mighty falling, Rotom Wash, Slazzle, Thundurus and Thundurus T, Torkoal for Sun, Toxtricity, Venusaur, Booksy for Stealth Rock, Lead, Trick Room, whatever you want to do, Weavile, I'm using Glar, I think I've said that before, so guess what, you get 2 mentions and Xatu. And last, but certainly not least, we also have C- rank with Araquanid, Arctozolt, Charizard, Cloyster, Gyarados, Mantine, Porygon 2. Hey, made it. Marina, just budget Tapu Fin at this point, unfortunately, with a bit more offensive presence at least, so thankfully hanging on by a thread. Regidrago, our boy, Rabambi, Seismitoad, the Rain Warrior, Shedinja, everyone's least favorite Pokemon, Slowbro Galar, honorable mention to that guy, Stakataka, and Volcanion. If you want me to expand on these, let me know in the comments, but there really isn't a ton to say, and I'm not going to go through all, 40 some odd Pokemon in the C ranks. I kind of want to do more justice to up ranks as I explained before, but yeah, no, these are the Pokemon in SSOU rank, the viability rankings. Let me know what you're thinking of the metagame below. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe if you want to see more in the channel. I'm going to get some lives later this week and be super hyped, but yeah, no, I hope you guys all have a great day, and peace out. All right, bye-bye.